This is my studio, or as I call it, my Tron room. It's got lights that run around on the ceiling, a bunch of 3D printers and cool machines. It's got a light up space window. It's pretty awesome. But it also has something in it that's kind of dumb. Here's my typical studio shot. With the fabric in place, this is what it looks like for the courses. And here it is without the fabric. It's worse, right? Okay, let's make it better. I mean, I guess it's really just that I haven't taken the time to finish it, so it could be better. But that's what we're gonna do today. Here it is. So I've got a bunch of cool 3D printers up here sitting on a really cool stainless steel desktop, and that's sitting on some shelves with a bunch of storage. And then there's this, just like a whole bunch of black fabric that's just like snapped on there. The whole point here was that this was the backdrop for when we shoot our online courses, where we teach Arduino and Fusion. I'll put links down in the description. But I wanted to hide the storage, so I just grabbed some fabric and clipped it up there with these little guys. Now, this was not supposed to be the permanent solution. I really just wanted to cover up the stuff that was stored on these shelves, but it's a huge pain. It's oversized, it's floppy, there's no way to hold it up. And so while I was trying to come up with an idea, I realized I have a lot of these shelves, like these, and these, and these, and these, and these. So I figured if I have a lot of these shelves, other people probably have them too. So we should make something to make them all look better. So here's the plan. These shelves are pretty much the same no matter what company you buy from. Basically, they're 36 or 48 inches wide, usually, and they come in two sections. You can stack them to have a tall set of shelves, or you can put them next to each other for like a workbench, and that's how I have them in my room. So we're gonna focus on just like one half stack and make a cover that will cover the entire face of it. But we have to make sliding panels to fit inside so that we can get to stuff but also hide stuff. And then we can make it more complicated than it needs to be. For this project, I picked up some 1x4s out of poplar because poplar paints really well. And even though this is beautiful, I need to hide stuff. So all of this is gonna get painted black. But before we do that, I have to rip all these pieces down in half so that I have twice as many. And I'll show you why in a second. This video is sponsored by PCBWay, and based on the name, you can probably figure out that they make custom PCB boards, but that's just like one of the many things that they make. Under one roof, they can do all sorts of manufacturing, from 3D printing and resin and FDM, from CNC machining to laser cutting, and so much more. Basically, it's a one-stop shop for you to be able to get your ideas manufactured, whether you need one for a prototype or you need 100,000 of them to sell. They've got almost an endless possibility of finishes and materials to use for all these different processes, and you can get to all of it through one website. To get started, you go to PCBWay.com. You upload your design files in whatever format you need, and then they've got actual people that look at your files, figure out the best way to do it, and then send you back information for you to verify. There are quality checks in place before they go making stuff to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want. It's actually a really cool system, and the stuff you get from them will be high quality, I promise you. Right now they've got a deal to help you get started with a small batch of stuff. When you check out, you can use the code PCBWay-ILTMS10, and that's gonna get you $10 off any order over $30. It is a fantastic way to try out getting something printed in a really unique material, or getting something cut that maybe your machine can't quite fit. Be sure to go check them out, and huge thanks once again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. All right, so I cut these down into a thin piece and a wide piece, and it doesn't really matter which one's thin or wide, but the reason I cut it into two pieces is so that one can act as the face frame, and then the other one can be glued and brad nailed to it like this, and that can act as the track for the door and maybe some lights. But also having these two together in this shape is gonna make it a lot more rigid over the 4 feet, the span of the shelves, which means over time, it shouldn't sag. Now, a lot of times you would wanna miter these corners for a face frame so that it looks nice, but I'm trying to hide everything, so I don't really care. So we have the face frame, that's cool, and then the back piece that goes here needs to have some slots, and those slots just have to be big enough for some pieces of plexiglass that I bought. Those are gonna end up being the doors. So we can run this over the blade on the table saw and add those slots pretty easily. The frames are done. They were super easy, and if you wanted to, you could just make the doors out of 1/8" MDF or Luan, cut those pieces down to fit. But I'm gonna use acrylic because I like to make things more complicated than they need to be. The acrylic could be cut down to size on the table saw with a regular blade or even an acrylic blade, but I'm actually gonna cut it on the laser because I also wanna engrave a pattern into it. That pattern is so that light can come through. And you may say, Bob, it's clear, light's gonna come through the whole thing. Not if we paint it black. Truthfully, I don't know if this is even gonna work. I assume you can laser through paint onto acrylic, but I've never tried it. So I made a little test piece so I don't ruin my big pieces. Let's make sure that it actually does what I think it's gonna do. This is the side that got the paint and got lasered, and it does not look great. But the other side, that looks pretty awesome. But unfortunately, the spray paint is just not uniform enough, so I'm gonna have to roll these instead. Now theoretically, the panels, the doors, should just pop into the tracks, but before I put them in, I actually want to go ahead and try to figure out how to get this attached to the shelves. And I think it's going to be really easy. And it's going to be easy because of this. There's a keyhole built into the upright of pretty much every one of these shelves, maybe slightly different shaped, but generally that's how the shelves are held together, so we can take advantage of it and put a screw through that hole and drop it down, and there it is, temporarily mounted. You can easily just lift the whole thing up to take it off. So to figure out where this goes, I'm just gonna hold it up to the position that I want it to be, and then just mark through one of those holes. Of course, there has to be space above it so that you can go up and drop down, so leave a little gap up there. And then I'm just gonna mark one of these on the back side. Now I can just measure that spot to the top and do the same thing on the other side so it'll hang level. 5 1/4, 5 1/4. Okay, I goofed up just a little bit, but we can fix it. Basically, I measured the total width of this thing to the outside of the frame, not thinking about the fact that I actually had to put in those screws, which are not on the outside of the frame. So when I found their actual location, it's really close to the inside edge. But luckily we have enough space here that I can take another little scrap and glue it in place right there, so I have enough meat to drive the screw into, and there's still enough gap here to be able to slide our doors behind the face frame. Actually worked out super well. Now, before I put the doors on, I have one more thing I want to add. So I'm going to add LEDs to the inside of this frame so that it will shine through the little cuts in the doors. Now, normally I would hook up a microcontroller and set up my own LEDs and make my own animations, but I already have this for something. I don't know where I got it, but it's a controller that has 2 separate LED lines that just plug in, so I can run both of these off the same thing. Now, truthfully, I don't even know if the LEDs are gonna work or if you'll be able to see anything through the panels or whatever, but we gotta put the doors on to find out. Of course, it's super difficult to film something that is all black, but bend it in place, drop it in the slot. Cool. Okay, first thing I noticed is that I used really thin acrylic, and they're definitely pretty floppy. They want to sag, so using thicker stuff would work against that, but it would also be a lot more expensive. But it does work, and luckily the stuff on these shelves is not stuff I have to get to really often, so it's no big deal. Let's try out the lights. It looks super cool in here. I honestly don't know if the camera could even pick the lights up, but it looks pretty awesome. Of course, the entire point of doing all this was to hide the stuff on the shelves for my locked in studio shot. So we gotta test that out. And here's the final shot. this is what it's gonna look like in our courses from now on. And I will say, it's actually pretty awesome because I can see the light up lines when I didn't think that I could. Now, of course, the lights and even the acrylic and the painting and all that stuff, that's me. That's like my aesthetic that I want for this room. But if you just need something to cover up the kind of work utility shelves in your shop, this is a great way to do it. Like I mentioned before, these are shelves that a lot of people have in different parts of their houses, and this is a very simple project to make them just look better. It only uses a few tools, some basic materials, and I hope it gave you some ideas for something you could do in your home. And if it did, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll catch you next time. So I made a little test piece just so I don't ruin and make a cover that will go, that's gonna be hard to see. And honestly, it can make any room, not any room. I like to make things more complicated than they need to be, so. Let me do that again.